Hey everyone, welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. I'm Mark, and as always, we have a really cool new gadget for you. As you can see in front of me today, we have the Apple HomePod. It just came out today. In fact, this was actually announced around 8 months ago at WWDC in June 2017. So it's been a while. This is a long wait between an introduction and the release of a new Apple product. But it's finally here. We have it. A lot of people are excited about the audio quality. First, to my takeaway, and also please send in your questions. I'll answer them throughout. We already got a lot already. My takeaway on this thing is, if you are an iPhone lover and you have $350 to spend on a music-focused speaker, this is for you. It's right in the middle of the Apple ecosystem. It's super easy to set up and pair, and the sound is honestly incredible in the few demos I've had with it so far, using this since yesterday. Sounds better than the Sonos One, sounds better than the Google Home Max, but if you want a true smart speaker, something like an Echo with the Alexa ecosystem, this is not for you. So they're focusing on music with this one. We're gonna dive into it. I have a bunch of stuff to show you. This is the packaging right here for those who have not gotten it yet, or you're just curious what it looks like. I know a lot of people are obsessed with Apple packaging. You lift up the top, the HomePod is in there. This is just one unit we have here. We actually have a review unit from Apple right here, and I'm gonna play with that one. This is the one I've been using at home and for our testing here. Again, send your questions, but the first thing I wanna do is give you a little bit of a hardware tour of the device over here, and I think the first thing to show you, something that people have been asking about, is the actual size. So this is the Sonos One. I don't have it plugged in because I'm just comparing size, not audio quality today, but it's about the size of the Sonos One. It's a little bit wider. It's pretty much the same height, give or take a few millimeters. Both of these come in white and black. This is the black/space gray model of the HomePod here. $350 for this one. You can buy two of the Sonos Ones right now for the same price as this. The difference is this has Siri. Here you can switch between Google Assistant and Alexa when a software update for Assistant comes out later this year. This is the Home Max. You can see the size difference of the Home Max. It's ginormous. And if you flip it up upright, so it's sort of like the HomePod, you can see it's stacked about twice the size of two HomePods, one on top of each other. The difference is that this is mono audio, which matters to some people, real audiophiles, and this one has stereo. But in terms of the build quality between these three devices, this is really, Apple build quality. It's what you'd expect for $350. It really feels really solid. You have this mesh around it. And some things I've noticed on some of these speakers, including the Home Max, is if you push in, it feels a little cheap or whatever, because you can push in and you can feel the actual speakers, the subwoofers, and the tweeters and whatnot under here. The Sonos One is a little bit better encased, but the HomePod, you see the holes in the fabric around it. When you squish it, all you feel is sort of like the plastic or metal interior of this thing. You're not poking into anything, you're not feeling anything other than what's in here. And this goes all around 360. And another thing, people have been asking about the power cable. You can see it right here. Some reviews have been praising the power cable, saying it's one of the best parts of the HomePod. Truth be told, it's just a power cable. Not that big of a deal. For those asking, it is connected into the HomePod itself. You can't really pull it in and out. There might be a way for Apple to replace it if you need to replace the power cable, but that is something that's not going to pull out if you trip over it, which is a good thing for some, a bad thing for others. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Most people are going to have these on their counters, bookshelves, kitchens, in a stationary place, so I don't really foresee many circumstances other than pets or kids wanting to pick it up and play with it. But overall, it feels really, really solid. And in terms of the actual specs inside, 6 mics, 7 woofers inside, 7 tweeters inside, sounds really good. So I think the first thing that we should do is really talk about setting it up. So how does it work? Well, you'll want to take your iPhone, put your iPhone next to it, and then you can't be on, I tried setting it up while I was on a phone call yesterday. It didn't actually work. So you want to get off the phone call, want to stop what you're doing, you turn the phone to sleep mode, and then you power it on, unlock the phone. You have to be within a few feet of the HomePod, and then you'll get a little pop-up window in the bottom that explains how to set it up. So you choose, is this going to be in your bedroom, your living room, your kitchen, your den, whatever you want. You select the room it's in. Then you prove your Apple Music credentials, your iCloud credentials being sent over, if you want to be able to get text messages and other information on the HomePod. And it's a pretty seamless process. It takes really under 1 to 2 minutes to set the whole thing up. Take it out of the box, plug it in, connect your phone to it, everything syncs over. Now, that's how you set it up. Pretty similar to the AirPods. Now, the most important thing about this is the audio quality. And if you want to just start playing some music, you basically just say, "Hey Siri, play me some music."
Just a moment. Okay, I think you might enjoy starting with some Woody Allen.
So there's some music playing. And then you can say, hey Siri, go to the next song. Hey Siri, what album is this song from?
You're listening to the album Stoney Deluxe by Post Malone.
And you can do other music commands. You can say, hey Siri, add this song to my playlist called The Mix.
Okay, I added Go Flex by Post Malone to the Mix playlist.
And then on some songs, you can ask for more information about the song. So you can say, and I don't know if this particular song, because it was chosen at random, will have information, but some do. Hey Siri, tell me more about this song.
I don't have that information on this song.
So on some songs, you'll be able to get more information. Hey Siri, pause this song. Okay, you can pause the music. Now, the interesting thing about this, in terms of the audio projection, this 3D audio technology they have, is no matter really where you are in the room, it sort of senses everything around you and positions the music so you can hear it. And it's super loud everywhere and it stays consistent. So for example, when I had mine placed in my house, I have it by the TV in the corner of the living room. But I would walk all the way down the hallway to my bedroom and it would still sound pretty good. And if I'm in the kitchen, which is a bit closer to the living room, I really don't notice the sound difference at all. I mean, the way that the sound and the feedback plays and bounces off the walls, it's not just marketing jargon on their website. It actually feels that way when you're listening to it, and it feels really clean. You can hear the words, the lyrics really smoothly throughout. The bass feels really solid. It's not overwhelming. And even when you put it to 100% volume, it's not overwhelming either. Now, what's really cool about the volume adjustments is the microphones. The microphones in this thing are awesome. Much better than the microphone technology in the Home Max and the Sonos. I cranked all three of them up to 100%, speaking at the same volume from the same distance, trying to, shout commands at them. And the HomePod was the only one where I didn't really have to scream at the top of my lungs in order to get the microphones to recognize me. Sometimes the microphones on an iPhone might be very slow. You might not be able to get your commands into Siri very quickly. It might feel a little bit buggy sometimes. But in terms of actually getting Siri to work, to listen to you, to answer your commands, and the speed, if you're connected to a good wireless network, it's actually night and day from sometimes how the microphones work, depending on how far away you hold the iPhone from your face, or if you're in a car or something when trying to do Siri commands. So being able to hear you over loud volume, major props to the HomePod for that, and the 6 microphones in there that allow you to do that. Now, we have lots of questions coming in already, and so I want to answer a few while we're talking through this. The first question we have is, what does it mean that the HomePod serves as a HomeKit hub? Now, one of the cool pieces of functionality of the HomePod is that it allows you to control with your voice your home appliances just like an iPhone, so it's no different. The only difference is that this is a wireless hub to allow you to do that. So, for instance, if your HomeKit hub, the HomePod, is in your house right now, and you have your iPhone with you, and let's say you're at work, you can ask your iPhone, is your door unlocked? You can ask it to lock your door, to start opening your garage and the blinds, doing any of your home commands if the HomePod is in your home, and you can do that from your phone. So it's basically a wireless connectivity protocol feeding from your home, smart home appliances, your devices in your home, to the HomePod, and the HomePod will send it over the networks to your iPhone, even if you're not at home on the same Wi-Fi network. And there's only 3 devices from Apple that allow you to have a HomeKit hub at home. It's the HomePod, it's the Apple TV, and it's an iPad. So if you have an iPad consistently at home, or an Apple TV, either the 3rd, 4th, or now 5th generation with the 4K Apple TV, you don't need to buy the HomePod as a HomeKit hub. So if you were going to buy it specifically for that, it's not a necessary purchase. But what is cool is you're able to shout commands at it while you're home, sort of the lights, and it's a bit easier if you don't have your phone with you. The microphones across the room and the HomePod are much easier to pick up if you want to unlock your door, check if it's locked, open the lights, wherever you are in the home. And I can imagine some people placing this around their home in order to do that. What would be cool is if they had a smaller one, sort of like the Echo Spot from Amazon, a little cheaper one, not $350, just for those HomeKit purposes. But here you have it all in one. More questions coming in here. I don't have an Apple Music subscription, but I bought 10,000 songs on iTunes. Can I ask Siri on the HomePod to play them? And what about the songs ripped from your CDs? Yeah, that's a good question. So to be very specific, this is very Apple Music focused. We'll get into Spotify and AirPlay integration in a second. But if you upload those tracks to your iCloud music library via iTunes or via iTunes Match, whatever service you have there, or if you have an Apple Music subscription, it would rip those songs and upload them to iCloud music library as well. You'd be able to access access those on Siri here too. But really, in order to listen to most music that you have, you're going to want an Apple Music subscription. So right now they say they have 36 million Apple Music subscribers. So basically the HomePod is really for 36 million people right now. Hopefully one day they expand it to more music services like Spotify. And that takes me to my next point in terms of what audio you can actually get on here. Now, Apple Music you can fully control from your voice on here, but what you can't fully control on your voice from here are music applications like Spotify and YouTube. So let's switch the other camera here so I can show you the Spotify app on the iPhone here. And you can see this is just the standard Spotify app. Now I can play music from here, so I have Spotify playing on the phone, right? Now I could actually still get that music on the HomePod via AirPlay. So you just go to devices available, more devices, AirPlay and Bluetooth, and then your HomePod will pop up here just like your AirPods might. Pop it there, and then it will stream the music over the phone via AirPlay to the HomePod. Let's switch to the other view here so we can see this all happening. So what you can't do is control it with your voice. So if I was going to ask Siri to go to the next track, and let's lower the volume here so you can hear me. If I was going to ask Siri to go to the next track, it would not be able to do that. If I was going to ask Siri to search the Spotify music catalog, it would not be able to do that. So it's very limited, but what the good news is you can still AirPlay music from Spotify, basically any app you're able to access in Control Center. Now I want to show you more of that. Let's go back to the iPhone camera view so I can walk you through the controls on Control Center for Apple, for the HomePod. So we pause the music there. And what you see here is you have your Control Center view for the HomePod. But if you're playing music from the phone itself, and let's go back to the other camera here while we're loading this up. So let's say I'm playing music from the phone here. Now I have it synced with the HomePod. But if I want to go back to my phone, let's go to the other view here. I have it playing on the phone. And then down below, you have the HomePod little through AirPlay here, and you can click that to see what's going on the HomePod as well. So you can basically go back and forth between what's playing on your phone, your other devices, other HomePods. You'll have multiple threads here in order to control what's on the HomePod and the phone at the same time from Control Center. So I'm going to pause that there while we continue talking about this. Now, in terms of iPhone control, like I said, it's limited to Apple Music. You can basically ask any type of command via Apple Music through Siri on here. But if you have YouTube, you're syncing audio from a game you're playing, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, you're going to be very limited to the volume controls and the controls on top of the HomePod unless you want to control it from the phone or the application directly. Now we have a ton more questions coming in here, and I think I answered a few of them about YouTube and gaming and syncing there. So we'll go to the next question. Let's say you have two homes on two different Wi-Fi networks, and you want to move the HomePod between the two. Do you have to reset it up all over again? Now that's a good question, and I can see why that question is raised, because if you have an Apple Watch and you want to transfer that to a new phone, let's say you get a new iPhone to replace, you have to reset the Apple Watch up again. This is actually pretty simple. So I had this connected to my home Wi-Fi network since yesterday, brought it over to the office today for the show, and I did not have to reset it up at all because my phone, it knows the Wi-Fi network on my phone because I'm here every day, just like at home, and it just transfers over. I just plugged it in and it started working right away. There are no issues at all, so nothing to do with transferring. So if you're going between two homes, you want to connect the HomePod to one home. When you go to the other home, you want to continue listening to music, you basically can pick up where you left off, which is actually cool, and it was a little surprising to me given how the Apple Watch works, and it's a similar type of product category. Now, more questions coming in here. If I'm playing something from a Mac, an iPhone, an iPad via AirPlay, can I give voice commands to the HomePod to pause, resume, skip, and change volume? Yeah, those Siri commands are actually very limited to the Apple Music coming from here. Now, what's actually really interesting to me is, let's say you're playing Apple Music, you have your phone in range. It's not streaming the Apple Music from the phone to the HomePod in order to play the music. It's all happening from the HomePod direct to the network. Same with text messages and reminders and other personal information and tasks we'll get into in a minute. So this is all happening through the HomePod itself. So if you're not home, other people are using it, you'll be able to access the Apple Music library and stream as well. More questions coming in here. If your phone is in the area and you invoke, "Hey Siri, how does the speaker answer on the phone?" And I just lit it up here. So that's actually a really good question. I was trying to trick it and play around with it yesterday to figure out what's going on here. What are the algorithms used for this to work? So if you're sitting on your couch and you're playing with your phone and you're actively using the phone, let's say you're browsing Twitter, reading Bloomberg or something like that, and you say the magic words, the phone will light up. So I sometimes would take the phone out, flip it over, turn it off in order to invoke Hey Siri on the HomePod itself. Now, right now I said Hey Siri and it invoked my phone, maybe because that's the last device I used. But if I were to, turn the phone over, flip the phone over so it's covering the sensor that knows that I'm looking at it, and I said Hey Siri, the HomePod would be invoked. Another question coming in here. Does the power cord feel and coil as nicely as it looks? I mean, I just really think it's a power cable. I mean, you can see here, it's just a power cable. Let's go to the other shot so you can sort of take a closer look at it, the shot where we normally look at the phone. And you can see that's the power cable right here. It looks pretty simple. Goes in right there, and that's really it. Just a power cable, not that big of a deal in my opinion. More questions coming in here. Can you order things from stores like the HomePod, like shaving cream? I don't know if you're making fun of me, but that is a good example. No, you can't. So Siri support is actually very limited on this thing to music functionality and some sports questions, some trivia questions. So there is no app ecosystem on the HomePod like there is on the Google Home Max and the Sonos. The Sonos, you could do that. The Home Max, you can do that. What you can do from the HomePod is limited to reminders. So for example, hey Siri, remind me to buy milk at 4:30 p.m. today.
Okay, I added buy milk to the reminders for today at 4:30 p.m.
And if I were going to go into my phone, so I'll go in here and I'll go to the reminders application, and you can see, let's switch the other camera here. You can see I have the reminders I was testing earlier and the buy milk right here. So everything syncs with the application on the iPhone itself. Another question coming in here, how much is it? $350. That is the price, $349, $350. If you want to get the full stereo, something that's coming later in the year to be able to pair two HomePods together, obviously $700 total, which is a lot of money for a lot of people. Now let's dive into some more stuff I have here from my testing. The microphones are really good. They are really solid. No matter how high the music is playing up or down, I really was able to get through to the HomePod without really yelling at it. Now, I did have a concern about the Hey Siri command. Now, let's switch to the top camera so you can see the top, the orb light here for the Hey Siri command. And you can see the little screen right there.
I just don't get this whole gender thing.
Okay. See, Siri's got comments too, because when it doesn't understand what I'm saying. So what you can see here is this is the touch panel on top. Now, the problem is, let's say you're laying in bed, you're laying on your couch, and you say, Hey Siri, what time is it?
The time is 12:47 p.m.
And so you see the little color array up there, but you're not able to see it if you're laying down, right? Unless you're looking at top of it or you're sitting in an angle of view where you can see the top, you can't really see that Siri is listening. There isn't a way for Siri to tell you or to give you feedback to know that it's starting to listen unless you're looking at the direct top. And while we're on here, I sort of want to give a comprehensive look at this touchpad on top. There was a lot of talk. Is it a screen? Is it not a screen? It's not a screen, okay? It has this little orb light here, has volume controls here, and I want to walk you through them. So basically, we can start playing music. Hey Siri, play some music. Hey Siri, play some music.
On it. First up, Legend by Drake.
Playing music. First thing you can do is play pause. So you tap the top to pause. You want to continue playing?
Yeah.
It plays. You want to go to the next track? You double tap on it.
Another one. Another one.
And then you want to go to the previous track.
RIP to all the real niggas worldwide. Salute.
Next track. And if you do 3 taps, it will go back. And you can also touch and hold for Siri. Hey Siri, what was the score to the Lakers game last night?
The Lakers pounded the Thunder by a score of 106-81 yesterday.
Great game, by the way, last night. Now, one thing I noticed is I like to get in-depth stats about sports scores and games going on. So if I were to ask Siri, hey Siri, how many points did Brandon Ingram score last night?
The Lakers crushed the Thunder by a score of 106-81 yesterday.
So it knows that Brandon Ingram, very good player by the way, is on the Lakers because it gave me the Lakers score. But it didn't tell me how many points Brandon Ingram actually scored last night. And I tested this on the iPhone with a number of players in a number of different leagues. And it actually will tell you on SIRI, on the iPhone or the iPad, how many points that particular player scored last night. So it goes a little bit further on the iPhone itself. Now, another interesting piece of functionality here is that calendar information is missing. So you can do reminders, you can send text messages, receive text messages, but you can't really add to your calendar, you can't read emails from it. Hopefully these are things Apple will add, month over month or year after year with software updates, but I think those are some big omissions right now, specifically the calendar and the lack of the in-depth sports scores. But you do have more knowledge here, so you can say, hey Siri, who is Lonzo Ball?
One moment. I can't get the answer to that on HomePod.
It did when I was testing it earlier, but you could also try some new. So, hey Siri, play the latest news from Bloomberg.
Here's the latest news from Bloomberg.
More than 1,700 points twice. Now that Qualcomm's refused Broadcom's $121 billion offer,
and you can pause it.
The CEO may have...
Now, another cool piece of functionality on here are speakerphone calls. Speakerphone calls on this thing are awesome, but only when you begin them, because you cannot make a speakerphone call from the HomePod itself. I'll show you. Hey Siri, call Mark.
I can't help you make calls on HomePod. Sorry about that.
So you can't make a call on the HomePod, but if you make it from the phone, and I'm going to do a quick call from the iPhone here itself, so you can take a look at to answer another question we got earlier about what can be shown on the display. So I'm going to make a phone call here, and then in the menu, you can select Mark's HomePod like you would select your speakerphone or AirPods, and it will play through the HomePod itself. And let's go to the other camera here so we can see this, the top camera. And you can see that green light flashing on the top. So that green light is basically the only other piece of functionality with this display you can get. It shows green when you are on a phone call. Hi, Jose, can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
How does it sound?
It sounds great.
So when I was testing this yesterday, Jose, and everyone watching, I would walk away sort of farther from the speaker itself, and I would ask, does it sound like I'm on a speaker? Does it sound like I'm away from the phone? No, it normally sounded like a normal phone call. You can adjust the volume, and you can also hang up by, tapping that green light on top. So thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You tap the top, and it will end the call. So speakerphone calls on this thing I think are going to be great. If someone has this in an office environment and they want to use it for their phone calls, that's great. I just wish it would go a step further, and I really have no idea why they're not doing this, allowing Siri to make the phone calls for you. I think that would save a big step, and that's actually a piece of functionality I really hope that Apple adds soon, because I use these things for speakerphone calls when I've used the Home Max and the Echoes and the Sonos One in the past, so it would be great if that functionality was added there. Now, we have more questions coming through here, and we're only going to get through a few more, so feel free to please tweet them or Facebook them at me if I don't answer your question. But one question coming in here, is it smarter than Google Home with regards to random inquiries like how old is Barack Obama? Let's try that. Hey Siri, how old is Barack Obama?
Barack Obama is 56.
So random information like that, Barack Obama is 56 years old, it's pretty good at. In terms of having an app ecosystem, being able to call an Uber, read your emails, add to your calendar, that's where it lacks. But you're going to get top-notch music functionality only if you have Apple Music, and it can give you some random information like that as well. Another question coming in here, does it have multi-room function? So, three things going on here with multi-room and multiple HomePods. First, stereo sound. If you buy two of them, you can have them next to each other or pretty close by, one on either side of a big TV, and you could link them so they're completely in sync, play music and act as a right side and a left side, which a lot of high-end stereo systems are able to do. You'll be able to do that for $700 with this one. Then there's true multi-room. You can have one speaker in the bedroom, one in the living room. You're able to play music from both of them, the same song, in sync at the same time. So you go room to room and the same song is playing throughout at the same time. Another portion of the multi-room is to be able to say to one HomePod to play music in the other room from the other HomePod, and you can do that from the phone as well using the AirPlay 2 menu in Control Center. The third thing is what you can do right now. You can have two separate ones. They don't link, they don't talk to each other, but you can actually use one iPhone to control two different HomePods through the HomeKit application, which is cool. Another thing I wasn't expecting. I thought that would be more so part of the HomePod updates coming in the future for stereo sound. Other questions here. I just opened mine and set it up. I can't figure out how to connect to Bluetooth audio. Can you go through how you did it? Yeah, so that is one omission from the HomePod. You can't stream audio from the phone or another device to the HomePod over Bluetooth. There is Bluetooth 5.0 functionality built in here according to Apple's tech specs, but in order to stream audio currently from a device, it has to be over AirPlay. So you can shoot audio from an Apple TV, a Mac, an Apple Watch, an iPhone, or an iPad, basically anything in the Apple ecosystem, which takes me back to my point. If you want a really solid sounding, really clean, crisp audio experience with great bass, pretty much the best sounding smart speaker I've ever heard, you're going to want a HomePod only if you subscribe to Apple Music and only if you're in the Apple ecosystem. Other than those factors, you might want to look elsewhere. After hearing the audio quality on this thing, I think the closest kin to it, not as good as the HomePod, is the Sonos One versus the $400 Google Home Max. So if you want Alexa, you want Google Assistant, for now, I'd probably want to go with the Sonos One. But when Apple improves Siri functionality, if you have an iPhone or Apple Music, the HomePod is really for you. The audio on it is fantastic. I just wish it was a bit smarter. If you have more questions, please send them to me on Twitter. In a few months' time, after we had more time listening to the HomePod, getting the full gist of what it's about in terms of audio quality, we'll do a more in-depth review on Gadgets with Gurman. We'll compare it to all the other Sonoses and whatever new smart speakers from Amazon may be at the market, from Google or them at that point, and we'll dive through it in more depth. But for now, send me your questions, and thank you so much. This was our first impressions of the new Apple HomePod.